So the first game we have on this episode is Noctiluca, and its designer is Shem Phillips. There is no artist listed, and the publisher is Z-Man Games. Matt was supposed to do this part. He's not here.
Yeah.
Anyway, Noctiluca is a kind of a game where you're trying to collect a bunch of dice and put them on these different cards. And it represents basically these bioluminescent sea sparkles. Excuse me. I think they're called. Basically, they're represented by dice. Different translucent colors. Dice. Yeah, there's 4 different color dice. And it's on a grid, a hexagon grid. And you're going to basically put 5 on the outer ring and 4 on the inner ring. And then you get 2 cards. These cards are essentially they represent like bags of water that you put in different little sea sparkles or these Noctiluca in. It boils down to you need 2 blues, a purple, and an orange. Right. Or whatever the case is. And you're trying to gather as many dice to fill up those cards, to complete them, to get new cards, to complete them, to get new cards, to complete them. And at the end of the game, whoever has the most points wins. And you get points for completing these cards and some other things. So what happens is each player gets these pawns. And I think in a 4-player game, you get 3 apiece. And so there's always 12 pawns, but they're split up among the players. Anyway, what happens is on your turn, you take a pawn and you get to place it on the outside of this hexagon grid, and it's going to give you choose one of the directions to go straight, and then you say a number, and every dice in all the hexes in that direction on those, which is usually like 4 or 3 hexes or 2 hexes, all the numbers of that same number come to you. So you might get some blues and purples and oranges and greens or whatever, but you get a ton of dice, or you might not get a ton of dice. And then you can take those dice, and at that point, the numbers don't matter. All that matters once you gather them is the colors. And so the 2 cards in front of you, you're going to put these dice on those cards to complete them. Whatever you cannot place, because you don't get new cards once you complete them right away, you get it at the end of your turn. So whatever you don't place, you hand those dice to the player on your left who picks one, and then it gets drafted around the table. Is your phone up here? That was a weird noise. All right, so sorry about that. The phone's coming through our speakers here. So you get dice, and then what you can't place will be passed around to the left around the board. And then, the idea is to get as many dice as you need, but not overdo it, because then other people get free dice. At the end of your turn, once if you did complete any cards, you're going to take new card or cards, like 1 or 2, from the display. There's always like 4 of them out there, and put those in front of you, and your turn's done. Anytime you complete a card, also, they're one of 3 different colors, the cards are, and there's this stack of tokens for each color, and you're going to grab a token off the top. So completing a color later on in the game is actually worth more, because the tokens increase in points for each of those stacks. Right?
I thought it was backwards. I think they start out with more points. As you play through it, you get less points, but you're trying to collect the most of a certain color, because everything that's left over, you're going to get that stack, and they're worth 1 point each. But I could be wrong. We only played it once.
Yeah, we only played it once. It's okay. Either way, there's stacks of tokens that are going to be worth extra points. Then the next player will go, and you'll keep going around until each person will have spent all their pawns. So as you're putting pawns down, you're also blocking that space from anybody else taking it. Because you're going to put pawns all the way around it, basically. So once the phase, that first half of the game is over, because everybody's played their pawns, you essentially reset the game up. You take all the dice, you shuffle them back up and put them all in different spaces, and you get 3 new pawns, and you do it again. This time, though, you play the last player is now the first player, and you play in the reverse order. So instead of A, B, C, D, now the second phase of the game is D, C, B, A, as far as turn order. And then at the end of that, you're going to score points. You get points for the cards you completed, those tokens you've collected. Eric's right. Any tokens of a stack that is not gathered are flipped upside down, and they're all worth 1 point apiece at that point. And I believe it's whoever's completed the most of that color gets the bonus points. And then you also get points you have a secret card at the beginning that tells you one of the 4 colored dice. And for every completed card that you have, you get a point for all those different squares that show up on it. So if you obviously want to pick the cards that have, like, for instance, I played in orange. I want to pick the ones that require me to get a lot of orange, because I get bonus points for it. And that's it. That's the whole game. So what did you think about this one?
I think one last thing is you get points for every dice that you have left over that on an uncompleted card.
No,
right?
I don't know.
They
I
might
mean, it's not important, but
right.
maybe.
I overall liked it. It is a lighter family weight game. I did like it because of the simple aspect of it. It's pretty much a casual game. So, however, I don't see myself trying to get this one because of I don't know. I think there's not a lot of replayability to it because you're going to be doing the same thing every time. There's not different strategies to do, and the board is pretty much laid out from the get-go, so you know all the actions available to you, once it's down. So it's just a matter of looking at what's there and finding those actions that benefit you the most without, like you said, going overboard and getting dice to your opponents.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, you are going to play the same game over and over.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like you do that in stuff like Splendor and other games.
That's true.
But I see where you're going at. I mean, it's going to be it's the exact same game, and you play it twice basically each time you play it.
Right.
I don't know. I thought it was pretty good though.
No, I didn't have a bad time doing it. And I would play it again. I'm just not looking to acquire the game myself.
Because you don't need to.
This
guy is going to pick it up. I liked it quite a bit.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit. I like the idea that, you only need the number that when you call for the dice, and then when you place them on your cards, you need the color. So I thought that was a really cool mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the fact that you block that space. So once you take it, no one else can take that space. You're like, oh man, you took the space I want.
Mm-hmm.
Now it does have the problem where
it has you can go to the opposite end. Right or no?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So if you're on one side of the board, the other player can go on the opposite side. So each row or line of hexes can be selected twice.
Right, okay.
Kinda. Or at least has two directions back and forth.
Right.
It doesn't stop you from going on that side. But it still does have the problem that once you start your turn in a 4-player game, you almost don't want to think about too much until it's your turn again.
Right. It has one of those issues where the game board is going to change so much that you can take some time to figure out your moves, but not necessarily are you going to be able to take that move because someone else in front of you could see that same move and take those dice before you.
Yeah, and I like that it's not just going out there and calling out the number that you see the most.
Right. No, it's definitely going to be you want to figure out where can I get these specific dice to fill up my bags of sea sparkles. It's
like, man, that's a lot of 6s, and I'll get like 12 dice. I only have 4 open spots. That doesn't make any sense.
Or I don't need green at all, so that might not even help you at all.
Oh yeah, no, because then you're going to give all those dice away for free to people who actually might need them.
Mm-hmm.
It is cool to look around the table and see when people don't need a color.
Although I was just thinking about it. I mean, if there is a point in time where I don't need any green dice and they're full up, you could take all the greens or whatever and just burn them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, hold on,
I guess
what do you mean?
doesn't...
Like if no one it'd just be removing them from the board because no one else would need them.
I guess it doesn't really affect gameplay that much.
No.
Never mind.
But it's still a cool game. I really like it. It's very basic and simple, but I think there's strategy there. There's a little bit of thought process. It's not a massive amount.
Right.
So I like it. I'll probably end up picking this one up. And it's not bad on cool stuff. I think it's $30.
Oh yeah. I mean, it comes with tons of dice. So.
Yeah, even if you just need dice, this game's worth it. Anyway, that is Noctiluca, unless you have any final thoughts.
No, that's it.
That's Noctiluca.